Hello, class, and welcome to the Protestant Reformation. The Protestant Reformation is a time in European history where your unified Catholic Church, which will split into Catholic and Protestant. All Catholics and Protestants are all Christians, but you are going to have that unified Catholic Church split into a Catholic Church and different forms of Protestant churches. Protestant Reformation comes from protest and reform. So people are protesting the Catholic Church, trying to make it better. To give you some historical context, the Protestant Reformation is occurring at the same time as the Renaissance. It is occurring at the same time as the Age of Exploration, with Christopher Columbus sailing in 1492 and Martin Luther, who is the leader of the Protestant Reformation, posting the 95 Theses in 1517. You also have your great discoveries occurring at this time, scientific discoveries. For example, this is when people are going to realize that the sun is the center of the universe, not the earth. So you're going to have some great changes. We have, as we said with the Renaissance, rediscovered Greek and Roman knowledge, and now we are taking that knowledge forward. And those events are going to influence what is going to happen. So what are the causes? What is going to cause this split in the Catholic, in the church in Europe? So one of the splits is you've experienced 100 Years' War and the Black Death. As a result, the population of Europe has declined. Your political structures are beginning to fray. Your economic structures are beginning to fray. People were questioning, if we are really of this faith, why is God punishing us so much? So you have that going on. In addition, you have a large clergy that is uneducated. They cannot read, they cannot write, they're unable to interpret difficult texts, and these are the people that are going out and sending God's message. You also have your church, especially your leadership, that was more concerned with what was going on in the political and economic world, not in the spiritual world. This is the time when the church is spending great amounts of money to finance artists of the Renaissance. You have St. Peter's Basilica being built. You have popes at this time who are negotiating political treaties between countries. You have cardinals advising kings. They're so focused on what's going on in the normal world, they're not worried about the spirituality of their people. You also have science coming about and threatening or challenging church ideas. The church believed the earth was the center of the universe. If God made man in his image, of course he would put them in the center of the universe. Well, now you have scientists saying, wait, the sun is the center of the universe. So that is beginning to challenge and contradict church teachings. In addition, you have an indulgence, which is a pardon from sin. Today, to receive an indulgence, you have to do an act of piety. Back then, this practice got corrupted, and what people literally were believing is, if I pay and buy an indulgence, I can get into heaven. And the church was selling these, and that God doesn't want money. So people were beginning to look at this practice and say, this isn't right. So you have the church hierarchy. At the top, of course, is God, but the leader of the man who is in charge of the church is the Pope. At this point, during the time of the Protestant Reformation, a lot of these popes were not good popes. They were corrupt. They didn't take their vows seriously. These are men who are not supposed to marry, but a lot of them had illegitimate children, for example. So you have this going on. So you have this structure, a top-down structure, that is also making it a little bit hard to fix problems in the church. So you had people early on calling for reform. You had a man by the name of John Wycliffe, who in England will translate the Bible. And this is important because we need to remember that the Bible was written in Latin. So not only do you have to be able to read and write in English, but to read the Bible, you have to be able to read and write in Latin. He's going to make, by translating the Bible into English, he's going to make the Bible more accessible for people. Jan Hus of Bohemia, he says the Mass should be in the vernacular, the language of the people. Because remember, not only is your Bible written in Latin, but people are going to Mass and it's in Latin and they're not able to understand what is going on. Both of these men also taught that when you are looking for authority in religious matters, the Bible is better, has more authority than church leaders. I can read the Bible and I can interpret it and decide what it means. And he's saying that I should follow the Bible. Both these men are preaching before the printing press. So what ends up happening, their ideas don't spread. They are very, very limited to their areas. We're not going to see Martin Luther, who is going to be a leader of the Protestant Reformation, is literally going to take these men's ideas. He doesn't take them, he develops them. But because he's able to spread his ideas, he's going to be he's going to be widely known, where these men, it never really leaves their areas. So there are a couple Renaissance ideas that are affecting it. Secularism, the idea that we're focusing more on the world here, not the afterlife. So secularism, people are paying attention more to the world today, not the afterlife. Individualism, emphasize when you look at the art, you have Leonardo da Vinci's famous drawings. They're focusing on the individual, the importance of people looking at themselves, looking at what can I accomplish as an individual. And you have Christian humanists who are taking the idea of individualism and you're taking the idea of secularism and you're beginning to apply it to Christianity and asking some difficult questions of what was going on in the Catholic Church. And of course, the biggest invention, communication tool, begins to spread these ideas. They begin in Italy and then they move north to France and they move to England and so forth through Europe. So what is the Protestant Reformation? Well, as we said, they were protesting. So they're dissenting. Remember that vocabulary word. They're speaking against the church. They want some changes and they want reform. They want them, so they're protesting the problems of the church and they want the church to change, but the church does not want to change. So that's going to bring this guy in, Martin Luther, who is going to develop the 95 Theses. He is literally going to go in 1517 and he is going to nail a document to the church door that is going to start to question the church. So what are some things that Martin Luther, so we focused on the non-religious. Let's look at what was going on religious-wise. First of all, the church was very wealthy. They were taking in large amounts of wealth. Merchants were saying, why is this happening? The merchants, so economically, the merchants are challenging the church's wealth. In your hierarchy structure, your popes, your cardinals, your archbishops, so your leadership of the church is going to be very Italian dominated. Your German and English leaders are going to say, why is it Italians who are running the church? This is going to be a political cause of the Reformation. This is where your kings and queens, especially your kings, are going to say, who has more power in my country? The Pope or me, the king. We'll see that with Henry VIII. The church was wielding tremendous amounts of political power and wealth. They owned large estates. They were advisors to kings and queens. Well, I'm sorry, they were advisors to kings. There weren't many queens. Remember, cardinals were sitting on the councils of kings. And last, you had church corruption. You had the sale of church offices. You had clergy not abiding by their vows, and you had the sale of indulgences. And we know God is not interested in money. As we talked about the early reformers, Cauuse and John Wycliffe, people were beginning to say, wait a minute, the Pope we'll say we know he's a spiritual leader, but he should not be a worldly leader. He's not a political leader. And remember, they're also saying the Bible has more authority than the church. We have a definition of the Protestant Reformation, which you will copy. But the important thing is it's where you're going to have Christianity split, Catholics who still follow the Pope's authority, and your Protestants who will reject the authority of the Pope. And those are going to be your new churches. So the guy who starts the Reformation is Martin Luther. And he's going to have 3 key ideas. He's going to have salvation comes by faith alone. The Bible is the ultimate authority. And all humans are equal before God. And we're going to talk about these ideas in next class. Remember, this is very similar to Cauuse and Wycliffe. Salvation by faith alone, that belief that if I just believe in God, I can get to heaven. And then we're going to really talk about this idea. All humans are equal before God. Because this religious idea is going to influence the world today. Think about it. Martin Luther saying all humans are equal before God, and you're going to have Thomas Jefferson in the Declaration of Independence say all men are created equal. Very revolutionary idea. And then, of course, we're going to talk about 95 Theses. We're going to start next class with that. Well, after the test, we're going to work on it. And it's going to be Luther's list. This is the 95 things that are wrong and need to be fixed by the Catholic Church. So I thank you, and I look forward to having a discussion about what you learned in this video.